Greetings folks, this is Ronwise Gamgee and welcome to Quick and Dirty Roleplaying. In this video, I'll talk about playing tabletop role-playing games while saving as much money as possible in 2023. Compared to other hobbies, I think tabletop role-playing is relatively inexpensive, especially when compared to closely related hobbies like board games that seek to emulate certain aspects of tabletop RPGs, like combat, domain management, or social intrigue. However, Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro, the owners of D&D, would like to make that not the case. They would like to make playing D&D as expensive as possible by not only increasing the price of their products as much as possible, but by breaking down every aspect of their existing products into new products, as is the case with spell card decks, minis, dice cups, dice platforms, Game Master screens, virtual tabletops with a subscription model, digital character generation software, etc. It's not an accident that D&D was designed in such a way as to overwhelm players and DMs with so many moving parts that they sell their customers the solutions to the problems that they create. Furthermore, they can do this because D&D is the most played tabletop role-playing game in the world. Just like McDonald's is the most consumed fast food, not beverage, that would be Starbucks, in the world. Popularity does not equal quality, despite what some people may want to convince you otherwise. I don't like this trend of influencing the TTRPG hobby to be something that can price people out of the hobby, because it absolutely doesn't need to be the case. You don't need D&D or a D&D imitator like Pathfinder or Tales of the Valiant to play a long-term campaign. Requiring a large range of numbers to build upon for viable long-term play is a fallacious argument. D&D has crunched the number range significantly in its 5th edition, most notably with the proficiency bonus, which starts off at +2 at first level and caps at +6 at 20th level. With Pathfinder 2nd edition, your character level is, to my recollection, almost always added to whatever dice roll d20 roll that you make. And the difference between someone untrained and a master at a proficiency, if both characters are of equal level, is +4, 20 percentage points, just like in D&D 5th edition. When both the PCs and the opposition scale up, no improvement is actually taking place because the probabilities remain relatively the same. Wizards of the Coast and Paizo have performed an act of emotional prestidigitation on their consumers and have sold it to them as viability for long-term campaign play. What they do in lieu of more and more numbers is more and more gimmicks. More moving parts means that the less system mastery a group has, the wider the dichotomy there is between speed of play and rules fidelity. The focus shifts, in that case, from immersive roleplay to playing a board game. If you like tabletop role-playing games primarily, or if you play tabletop role-playing games primarily like skirmish games or analog video games, and could do without role-playing, there's something more I can say to you, because by necessity, you need someone to provide you with a rule set that tells you what you can do, because if it's not written in the rules, your character can't do it. That, or you can just make up your own board game. So, back on topic. You don't need a constant drip feed of numbers going up or more feature bloat in order to play a long-term tabletop role-playing game campaign, let alone tabletop role-playing games in general. You can always apply the concept of scale when someone is out of their league and introduce custom-made, narratively relevant features to characters as it happens in the narrative in an organic manner. See the video I have linked below from Mr. Max Bovan, if I pronounced that correctly, he's French, titled Character Development, Not Just About Getting Stronger, for further information on the subject matter of, well, character development in tabletop role-playing games. So that kicks one leg from underneath the necessity of D&D or other overly commercialized tabletop role-playing games. Another thing you don't need to play tabletop role-playing games is beautiful or evocative art in the core rulebooks, or any art at all in the core rulebooks, really. See the White Hack as an example. Yes, art can inspire awe and can spark the imagination, but it doesn't have to come from the product itself. This is less the case when products feature unique settings, but even then, it's not an absolute necessity. I, for example, prefer to use settings already available in other media, mainly video games. And there's tons of media that already exists to illustrate the setting that I'm using for my tabletop role-playing game campaigns. Oftentimes, when I see media that sparks my imagination, I think of how I can adapt that into a tabletop role-playing game system so that I can run a game or a campaign inspired by that media at the table. None of that requires having that media represented in the text that I'm reading. When it comes to tabletop role-playing games that have licensed and existing intellectual property, you'll either see art from the already existing media portrayed in the product, or, for example, as in the case with the Expanse RPG, an artistic rendition of said media that is different from other derivatives, such as from the show. Also, another case of this is the Song of Ice and Fire RPG by Green Ronin Publishing, and probably the Game of Thrones RPG when Guardians of the Order made it. So, in either case, or in neither case, however, is the art needed for the group to create characters or play the game. The art in the product is not the game mechanics or the rules. At best, the art can be used to demonstrate what the PCs see in regards to an NPC, a creature, a map, or a location. And this is all stuff you can find on the internet. Last but not least, you don't need complicated board game style rules to run combat in a tabletop role-playing game. Again, if that's your jam, go back to the section where I talked about how people who primarily play tabletop role-playing games for board gamey combat. They're not needed though. You can use the primary dice mechanic of a tabletop role-playing game to run combat scenarios. Rolling for initiative is not needed either. You can do PCs first and then NPCs, or have actions take effect depending on how long it takes to perform said actions. In that sense, or for that kind of system, I would recommend 3-second rounds for this. Or just have things play out organically. Traits like hit points, armor class, weapon damage, and saving throws are not needed. The player can tell the GM what they want to do, how they want to do it, and what result they're going for. The GM can then determine what relevant modifiers to apply and have the players roll the dice to see if they succeed or not. Don't have dice or don't want to spend money on dice? There are lots of free dice apps available for your smartphone. There's also the really nifty diceless system from Travel Sized RPG, which I've reviewed on this channel, which you can use for task resolution while maintaining the element of chance. Want to keep your players challenged in combat? Keep the odds of success at 50-50 if you're using a binary success-fail system as the baseline, and allow for clever thinking to either bring the odds in their favor for succeeding at the task at hand, or for greatly improving the effects of success if they succeed on their roll. Be a proponent of the mantra of your character can try to do anything within their capabilities, as opposed to if the rules don't say you can do something, then you can't. The first allows for more creative freedom, while the second requires rules mastery. Also, in keeping within the topic of this video, the first mantra costs less than the second. With the way that companies want to price gouge ever since the global pandemic, it's important to realize that you and your group have access to much less expensive alternatives to D&D 5th edition, Pathfinder 2nd edition, Tales of the Valiant, and whatever other D&D imitator will keep peddling splat books because they designed their games to never give you the complete package in one core rulebook. If no more TTRPGs are to ever be sold in the market tomorrow, or if a worldwide EMP were to occur, forever knocking out each and every single power grid, the tabletop role-playing game hobby would still be accessible to human beings. Furthermore, it would still be possible to create more TTRPGs, because all you need is your imagination and communication, despite whatever WotC or any other company tells you otherwise, with their gratuitous, superfluous, unnecessary products. If you like or dislike anything you've seen in this video, please give it a like or a dislike and leave a comment. Subscribe if you want to support my channel, and if you really want to support my endeavors, head over to my Patreon and become an appreciated trooper. The link is in the description. Until then, folks, take care and play to find out what happens.